Najee Harris talks about his time in Pittsburgh. He says that he felt like there wasn't a lot of leadership on the team. He didn't really say the organization lacked leadership. But look where this is coming from. Najee is very level-headed, very professional. He never complained his whole time in Pittsburgh. And when a lot of the players are all saying the same thing, maybe it's about time that Art Rooney and the Steelers organization pay attention. Again, this isn't George Pickens. This isn't a guy that creates problems. This is a guy who never missed a game in 4 years, played all 17 games, went over 1,000 yards rushing each season, had, if you go by the number of carries that he had compared to Jerome Bettis, not games, carries, Najee Harris had better numbers than Jerome Bettis, and he played on a much worse team. No quarterback. The quarterback was never a threat on any team that he ever played on. The offensive line wasn't really established yet. Yes, he played with some good defenses, but that was about it. If you look at Jerome Bettis, the teams that he were on, the offensive lines that he had, the receivers that could block on the perimeter, he played on sensational teams where Najee Harris has never played on a great team. So when Najee says there wasn't a lot of leadership, that doesn't just go for players. That goes for position coaches. That goes for head coaches, assistant coaches. When Najee says there wasn't a real identity, we didn't really know who we were. And that starts at the top. That starts with Mike Tomlin. And then that drifts down to the position coaches. When you go to your meetings with your position coach, you should know what your identity is as an offense. There should be no questions. Do I think that Najee is saying this because he's bitter? No, I don't. I don't believe that at all. I don't think Najee's ever seemed bitter his entire time with the Pittsburgh Steelers. I've made video after video saying don't believe the Najee Harris lie, meaning that he hasn't been a great player for the Pittsburgh Steelers. The man's never missed a game. Played in 17 games all 4 years, scored multiple touchdowns, averaged about 4 yards a carry on horrible teams. Horrible. Those weren't good Steeler teams. If you put Najee on the same team that Jerome Bettis played on for years, Najee would have went well over 1,400, 1,500 yards per season. When the defense knows your quarterback is no threat to throw the ball whatsoever, it makes their job easier stopping the run. This is the NFL. This isn't Pop Warner. This isn't high school. Let's jump in and see what Najee had to say. In a recent interview with Chris Hare of KCL News, Harris spoke about his time in Pittsburgh and his wish for more veteran leadership during his time there. We just didn't know anything on offense, really, Harris said. We didn't have any identity. We had a young guy coming in at quarterback. I was young. The team was young. I really didn't have nobody to almost learn from on the offensive side. I'm just trying to look for people to pick their brain off of. It was an interesting year there, I'll just say that. Harris also hasn't been shy about voicing his appreciation of the Chargers since signing with them. He made a remark about their practice facilities and how they're not like this everywhere. Given that the Steelers are the only other NFL team he's played for, it felt pretty obvious who he was referring to. I mean, I'm not going to get into the practice facilities. When you're making millions and millions of dollars and you have every luxury of life and the comfort of your lap, I don't know. I'm not going to say anything negative about the Steelers' practice facilities. You're at practice. This is football. You have enough money to buy anything you want, to put in your locker, to make your day easier or more comfortable. So I'm not even going to get into that. Let's just drop that story. When you have multiple players leaving the Pittsburgh Steelers, and then you have other media sources like Willie Colon and Ravens players who talk to Steelers players, and you keep hearing this type of thing, that the Steelers are not organized, that they don't have a plan, that they don't have identity. I mean, even Minka Fitzpatrick a while ago, this is a couple years ago, he came out and said that the Pittsburgh Steelers need to make better use of their time in practice. You know, when I hear Minkah Fitzpatrick say things like that, I just think of one thing, that they're not organized and they're kind of just going through the motions, and you're not going to win in the NFL like that. Obviously, Minkah's still on the team, but this isn't the first time that we've heard players say this type of things about Mike Tomlin and the Pittsburgh Steelers. And again, you always have to look at the source. Minkah Fitzpatrick, the Pittsburgh Steeler to his core, who doesn't ever complain, that is never any maintenance. When it comes from somebody like Minkah, you might have a problem. Then Najee. Najee's not an over-emotional guy causing problems. He's very, very level-headed and professional. I think this is... A lot of people won't make a big deal out of this. They'll just chalk it up to, well, Najee's bitter because he's not on the Steelers anymore. I don't look at it that way whatsoever. I think there's some internal structural problems with the Pittsburgh Steelers that they really need to address. And whether it's Tomlin directly or indirectly, it all falls back to Tomlin, because Tomlin has the final say on what position coaches are going to be there, what players are going to be there. Every decision made in the Pittsburgh Steelers organization is made by Mike Tomlin. And you have players like Najee saying this type of thing. Maybe you need to bring in consultants. Maybe you need to have a Marshall Faulk brought in, or a Jerome Bettis that can explain to these young running backs what they need to do. The same thing with the offensive line. Every NFL team has consultants to make their organization run smoother, but the Pittsburgh Steelers. I really feel that letting Najee Harris go was a mistake. You know, you take for granted his production. You're not, just because you bring in another guy, it doesn't mean the Steelers, he's going to run for 1,000 yards. Everybody just takes Najee Harris for granted. I've been saying it forever. So Steelers also signed another defensive tackle, Azizi Odomeo. The problem I have with these defensive tackle signings, I know we got the guy from the Patriots and Azizi from the Jaguars, but this is indicating to me that the Pittsburgh Steelers don't really want to draft the defensive tackle, and I think that's a mistake. You know, the player that the Steelers signed from the Patriots, the defensive tackle, Daniel Ekuale, the problem that I have with this is this. These players, we already know they're not going to be the next Cam Hayward. They could be solid players. They could be good players. But it doesn't appear that they're going to be great players. So why not draft the young guy? Why not see what the young guy can do? These two players that the Steelers signed already, you kind of know what their ceiling is. You have the tape on them. You had a player from college, and he had a good college career, and sometimes they turn into great NFL players. Something switches in their brain. They get better coaching. They get in the weight room more. Things change. You know, these two defensive tackles are never going to be Cam Hayward. Fine. They provide depth, and the Pittsburgh Steelers need that. But they could never be the next Cam Hayward, Warren Sapp. It's already been proven. I don't like these signings. We've signed 3 guys so far on the defensive line. Loudermilk also. Now, I like Loudermilk because you're bringing him back for a cheaper price. But all indications are saying after signing 3 defensive tackles that you might not, or you're probably not going to draft a defensive tackle in the draft. Now, I could be wrong. These guys should just be in training camp and all fighting out for a job. They might not even be on the roster. I don't know. That's not what usually happens. Dulac reports Steelers still in running for Aaron Rodgers. No specific timetable for his decision. I've been saying that all along. Maybe the Pittsburgh Steelers told Aaron Rodgers, hey, take your time. We want you to be fully committed. We got plenty of time to the draft for you to figure it out. Just get back to us when you're ready to roll. You know, why would you want Aaron Rodgers to sign if he's not fully committed? It never crosses anybody's mind that the Steelers told Aaron Rodgers, you know, take a week, take 2 weeks, you got time. Nope, they'll just blame it on Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers may be out of the running with the Minnesota Vikings. I've been hearing that too, that the Minnesota Vikings are definitely not interested in Aaron Rodgers. but he seems to still be very much an option for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Pittsburgh Post-Gazette's Jerry Dulac reported this morning that the Steelers remain in the running for the veteran services. Steelers have not been told they are out of the running for Aaron Rodgers and continue to wait on the four-time league MVP with no specific time set for a decision. Per sources, Dulac wrote on X, I think that Aaron Rodgers will have to give the Pittsburgh Steelers an answer before the draft. I don't think this is going to stretch after the draft because you're going to draft based on your needs. So if Aaron Rodgers doesn't give you a decision, if I'm, Omar Khan, I'll just be like, look, forget it. The offer's off the table. We're going to go a different way because you have to arrange your draft based on who's on your team. I do understand for Pittsburgh Steelers fans, this could be frustrating and it could seem childish behind the scenes. It could be the Steelers giving Aaron Rodgers a timetable to respond. I would bet, if I had a bet, Omar Khan probably told him, you have to the draft, but you have to let us know before the NFL draft. That would make perfect sense to me. If you want to think about this level-headed,